Hi, welcome to part 3 of Cardano Starter Kit number 3. My name is James. In this part of the Starter Kit, my goal is to help you set up a development environment that you'll be able to use later on in this Starter Kit as we build our first app, and moving forward to execute on all of the ideas you might be having right now for things you might want to build on the blockchain. I have two specific audiences in mind with this starter kit. One are people brand new to development. If you've never done this before, I want to show you the basics and point you in the right direction for learning a lot more about this. I'm not going to teach you everything, but I am going to give you kind of a framework for understanding where to start so that you can then build your knowledge. You can see right here that I've provided you some different extensions for following up from this part of the starter kit. The other audience for this video you're watching are builders, entrepreneurs who have ideas and want to create something. If you're not a developer, it can be really helpful just to have a clear understanding of what goes into development. So as you're building a team, you have a better idea for what sorts of people you have to track down, what sorts of skills you're looking for. I find that it can be helpful to draw a comparison between cooking and development. In both, you need a place to work, you need tools to help you do your job, and then you need all the knowledge and creativity that you bring to create the best possible outcome. So in the context of cooking, the place might be a kitchen and it might have some infrastructure like a stove and plumbing and that sort of thing. And you might have a bunch of tools like pots and pans and knives. And you probably didn't create all those tools, right? Maybe you bought knives somewhere and you bought pots and pans somewhere. Somebody else built those and now you can use them. Once you have those tools and some ingredients, you can apply your skills, right? It doesn't matter. I might have the best knives in the world, but my knife skills aren't that great because I need to practice. Let's compare this to development. In development, you need a place. You need an environment in which to write your code, test it, review the results of that code. You need tools built by other people so you're not starting from scratch. And we're going to look at some of those tools in the rest of this starter kit. And then you need your own skills and creativity for solving the problems you really want to solve. What are you trying to build? If you took a look at part 2 of this starter kit, you had an introduction to HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. You've also seen that there's infrastructure on which all of us are building every time we build a web app. The HTTP protocol is an example of that infrastructure. Now we get to use it. One tool that we are going to use in this video is the command line. And the best way to learn about the command line is simply by doing. You just have to try some things. So I'm not going to give you a full overview of that right now. I've linked to 2 courses you could take about the command line down here if you want to follow up. But I just want to show you by example, starting right now and continuing throughout this video, a few of the things that you might do on the command line, and this will continue in part 4. But let's take an initial look here. All right. So what I have is my desktop folder on my local computer. And I have a terminal window open to that folder. What you need to know about the command line is that it's just a way to interact with your computer. So just like I could create a folder over here by alternate clicking and pressing new folder and saying, all right, what should this thing be called? Let's call this one 1. Okay. So that's one way to create a folder. On the command line, it's about the same. I just type a command. In this case, make directory, mkdir, the name of the folder I want to create. Let's call it 2. Okay. I could also create files. So if I want to create an HTML file, I can write a command called touch. And then I can type index.html, for example, and that file shows up over there. I could move into directories. So I could open up directory 2 or 1 here. Or by using the command line, I could use the cd command and I could write 2. Now I'm inside that folder and I could touch another file. How about index.css? Well, there it is. Now it's in folder number 2. I could even list the contents of that folder by typing ls. There we go. Folder 2 has one file in it called index.css. Again, my point here is just to show you that the command line is a way to interact with your computer, and we're going to be using it a little bit more during this video. In addition to the command line, I want to reiterate a few really important developer skills that some people underestimate when they think about, how smart developers might be. I want you to know that real developers are really good at searching the web for answers, copying and pasting other people's code, and asking questions. This is a link right here to a site called Stack Overflow. Actually, if you Google a lot of developer-centric questions, often the search results are going to bring you to those questions on Stack Overflow. Again, this is all about learning by doing. Look at what other people have done and use it. Learn by working through examples. So back to the idea of the command line, for example, another extension down here is just to the Cardano documentation about installing a node. This is the first step in setting up a stake pool, for example. So what you can see in the documentation here are some prerequisites. Here's the infrastructure you'll need, right? Here's the dependencies you'll need. And the beauty of what happens when you read documentation is you get used to seeing words like dependencies and libraries. And this is a great way just to learn what language you need to understand better. But most importantly, what I wanted to show you here is as I scroll down, I can read through these dependencies. I might not be sure what all of these are, but at the end of the day, all I really have to do is copy and paste this to my command line, and then copy and paste another thing to my command line, right? Obviously, it's better if I understand what I'm doing at each of these steps, but really, if you can follow directions and cut and paste, you can have a Cardano node running. And as an extension, it can't hurt to give this a try. I wouldn't recommend starting a stake pool if you're not sure what you're doing, but there's no harm in building a node just to see what that's all about. So you can kind of play around and go a little deeper into the tech. In order to really start building your environment, you need a place to write code, to look through directories of files, and you need a command line terminal. Luckily, we have tools called Integrated Developer Environments, or IDEs, and Visual Studio Code is one of those. This is actually, I really love this software. There are definitely other choices for IDEs. This one is built by Microsoft. It comes with a pretty large library of plugins and extensions that you can use to do what you need to do. There you go. You see the extensions right there. It has Git built in, and we'll look at what that looks like in just a minute. And when you watch developer videos in 2019, 2020, and so forth, a lot of them, you'll see developers using Visual Studio. So again, this is not the only choice for this. You should definitely explore others if you feel pulled to do that. But I'm trying to point you in the direction of something popular, well-supported, well-documented, okay? I'm not going to walk you through the installation steps. Go ahead and download this for your operating system and get it open up. And then we'll start to play with it. Once you have Visual Studio up and running, the home screen will look something like this. So you have a bunch of different options for getting started, the help and documentation that you can read, which I absolutely recommend. It's very good. You can see I've already installed support for JavaScript here, so you can choose to do that. And the first thing I want to show you, just to show you the power of this program, is when I go over here to look at the file explorer. Okay, I don't have any files opened yet. I could create one or open one. But notice here there's this button that says Clone Repository. What happens if we click on that? Okay, it says Provide a repository URL. Well, what would happen if I just went back to GitHub and I went back to part 2 of this starter kit and I just took a look at this repo right here? Let's see. I can get the code from this web address right here, which I think is the same as this one, isn't it? It has a .git on the end. Okay. Yeah, so I want that address right there. Let's head back over here. Let's drop this address here. So now we're pulling from the internet. This happens to be the starter kit you're working on, but keep in mind, this could be anything. Any GitHub repo that's publicly available. You can copy it here, press enter, and then it says save it. Let me just save this to my desktop again. Yeah, that's fine. And what are we going to see? It downloaded. Oh, here we go. Would you like to open it? Here we go. Yep, I'll open it. And look at this. This is that file. Here's the README we were working on from last time. Here's the original index file where you started from. Remember, we added a year right here. And then in the solutions, here's the completed file right here. Let me right-click on this completed file, reveal it in the Finder, and then open this with a web browser. Look, it's the work we already did. Cool. Still working. Notice this file address. It's no longer an internet address, but it's a folder location on my computer. And this index file, and because this file, it's all in one page. It works. It pulls in that Google font, it pulls in a little bit of JavaScript, and it works. So the first thing that you've seen here about Visual Code Studio is that it's really easy to grab an existing project, open it up, and start hacking away on it on your local machine. Plenty more that we could say and do here, but for now I'm going to close these files and we're going to look at a few other things about Visual Studio, and we're a few steps away from having our developer environment ready to go. First of all, up here on the toolbar, let's open a terminal as well. Okay, so now you can see there's the 3 main sections of Visual Studio, or on any IDE. You've got your file tree over here. We can explore all of our files for one or more projects. Now we have a terminal open down here, and then files are going to go up here. All right. Let me head back to my desktop just so I'm no longer inside of that new starter kit repo we made. And let's just check to see if we have Node, NPM, and Git installed. That's the next step right here. Okay, check versions, Git, Node, and NPM. Now, if you do have all 3 of these things installed, what you should be able to do is type the word. So first we'll do Node, and then -v. Good. So I've got Node installed version 14. if you don't have it installed, let me just type blah-v, right? You'll get a command like this, not found. All right. And that means you have to install Node. Now, when you install Node, it comes with NPM. So I should have NPM installed right now, which I do. And then same thing with Git. Oh, Git doesn't have a -v. So it says up here, look where it says -- version. I'll do it like that instead. Good. Okay. So I have a Git version. I have NPM installed. I have Node installed. All I'm doing is showing you how to make sure you have these things installed. And it's likely that you don't yet have Node and NPM, but you probably have Git because it comes with Visual Studio. If you don't see that you have Git installed, go to the Visual Studio documentation to figure out how to get that set up. Now, I'd like to take you through getting Node and NPM set up. So let's do that. So you can go directly to the Node website, follow along here. What Node is an essential piece of, infrastructure software that allows you to run JavaScript on your computer. You see, it's a JavaScript runtime. And it's by far the most popular one. I wrote up here, all the tools we're going to use here are choices, and we could choose others, except maybe for Node.js. And if you want to read through this just to understand, right, this author is saying Node.js is so integral in building and the executing of JavaScript web applications that it's almost impossible to do it without it. Okay. And you can read through the reasons why. Notice, look, 3 billion downloads, right? This is up there with the app stores. This is the core piece of software that so much of the web is built on. Okay. Now, Node comes with NPM. So if you install Node properly, you should also have NPM installed at that point. So I'm going to leave it to you to follow through with these steps. You can also review the Node.js tutorial here in the Visual Studio documentation. These are some really nice articles to read through, okay? And actually, we're going to be using React in part 4 of this starter kit. So if you can read through at least sections 1 and 2, that'll give you the basic background that we need to get started, all right? This tutorial continues by having you write your very first JavaScript files. Let's just go try that. Hey, let's be real coders right here. Let's just copy and paste this code right here and bring it over to Visual Studio. And I should be clear, I guess I didn't pause this video to have you download Node. Before you can do these next steps that we're about to do, you got to make sure to download Node. And again, make sure that when you type Node-v, you get a version number and not a command not found message. If you run into any problems there, just reach out, okay? All right, so let's take a look at what's going on here. I am back in the desktop. Let me make a directory called test. I just want to test this. And let's cd over to that directory. And let's touch a file called hello.js. And then let me see about opening this folder. So I have CSK003 opened here. How do I open a new, let's see, can I go here? A workspace, desktop, test, whoops, let's try that again. Test, open. Nope, that's not it. How about how about this? Add a folder to my workspace, and let's add test here. How does that work? That works. Okay, so now I've got my CSK003, and then I've got this new test directory with a file that I just made inside of it. Good? Okay. And now we have an empty JavaScript file so that when I open it, it opens up right here. And let me use that code I just grabbed from the Visual Studio documentation. And then I'm going to press save. And so now I have a hello.js file. Now, how do I run this on the command line? Hello? Oh, that doesn't do anything. How about run? That seems like it would make sense. Nah, I'm just messing with you. Okay, what you really need to do right here is use the program Node that you now have installed on your machine. All right, and if I type Node and then the name of a JavaScript program inside of this directory, right? I'm inside of test, so I have access to hello. I can run that, and it says hello world. If I add 3 exclamation points and I type it again. Oops. Oh, I didn't save it. There you go. Okay, if I don't save my file, of course. There we go. Let's save it. Let's try that one more time. There they are. Okay. So now we can write JavaScript. We can test things out, and we can use Node to run these things. I know I moved a little bit quickly through some of those details there, so please let me know if I left anything out or if you have questions. But if you don't mind, let's just keep playing just a little bit. If, for example, you go over to Free Code Camp and start learning JavaScript and then just want to play with your knowledge, this is a place that you can do that. You now have a terminal where console.log messages will be output. You can make as many files as you want and open them from the File Explorer. So let's say that you're working through Free Code Camp and one day you learn about for loops. So I can set up a variable I equal to 1. I can run this loop as long as I is less than 5. And each iteration I will add 1. Every time this loop runs, I'm going to console.log hey. How's that? Let's do it. I'm going to remember to save my file this time so that it can be recognized. Type node hello. And look, it types hey 3 times. Or sorry, 4 times if I can count. Because I starts on 1, this runs while I is equal to 1. And then I increases to 2 and it runs again. And then I increases to 3 and it runs. I increases to 4 and it runs. And then when I increases to 5, that's no longer less than 5. So the loop stops running. Now I could even use the value of I right here. So instead of just writing nonsense, I could write, now I am printing the number, and I could do a concatenate sign right there, and then the letter I is our variable. And this time, let's have it run 1 to 10. Let's see, save that. Run node hello again. Look. Okay, so we just played with a for loop and we made it do something. Okay, so we just covered quite a few things right here. But again, I just want to introduce you to having Node up and running and the implications of that for just playing with very simple JavaScript files to make them do things. Node does a heck of a lot more than this, but at least now we know it's up and running and working. Okay, so how do we do here? If you're watching closely, you'll see that I just kind of rearranged these bullet points. At the beginning of this video, they were in a different order. And then as I got to work on them, I rearranged things a little bit. And so I just rearranged these to match the order that I covered things in this video. And I wanted to just call that out because all of these starter kits are a work in progress. My goal is to start conversations and launch people like you on a learning journey. So if you've never set up a development environment before, I hope that right now you're feeling like it's something that maybe you could do and you're feeling empowered to give it a try. It's hard to do this stuff alone, so please be sure to reach out. So for example, I have a link here. There's a Gimbalabs Discord channel where you can join us to ask questions about this stuff. And if you have feedback, for example, is there additional written documentation that you would like to see here? I'd love for you to tell us about that. And again, ask your questions there.